Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first session of our Partner Power Up series. Just a little bit of context. This series will be about spotlighting innovative technology partners who are really helping retailers and brands, much like yourself, solve complex challenges across order management, fulfillment, and just the broader commerce ecosystem. For each session, the goal would be to introduce you to vendors who are really just shaping the future of commerce and supply chain technology, give you a brief but hopefully meaningful overview of their capabilities, differentiation, and real customer success stories, and then leave some room for any questions or any follow-up conversations that you'd like to have. Today, we're excited to kick things off with Pipe17, a fast-growing company that's redefining what order operations means for DTC and omnichannel brands. And we're joined by two great speakers, Kelly Goetsch, Chief Operating Officer, Pipe17, and Kevin Nohl, Senior Vice President of Global Supply Chain at Aterian, a Pipe17 customer. We'll keep the session focused, starting with a few questions that I had, and then we'll open it up for live Q&A. During the Q&A, please do feel free to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask any questions that you may have. We would love for this to be interactive. With that said, we can dive right in. First and foremost, let's get to know our speakers a little better. Kelly, could you start by giving us a brief introduction, your background, and your role at Pipe17?
Sure. I started my career with ATG, which was the leading commerce platform back in the 90s and 2000s. Then went to Oracle, learned product management, actually under Mo, the CEO of Pipe17. So that was our first 5 years together. Wrote e-commerce in the cloud, which was just when commerce was actually starting to be deployed to public clouds for the first time. And then joined Commerce Tools as first CPO. And just left after 8.5 years. And at Pipe17, I do absolutely everything. I do a lot of products, a lot of product strategy. I do HR, I do finance. What else do I do? Marketing, I own now. Customer success. I absolutely do a little bit of everything at Pipe17 these days. So good to be here, and thanks for having us.
Thank you, Kelly. Kevin, over to you. Could you share a bit about your background, your role at Aterian, and maybe just a brief about your experience with Pipe17 as a customer?
Kevin Nohl here, most recently SVP of Global Supply Chain at Aterian. We're an Amazon aggregator, 6 brands. The way we look at it is we have 6 sub-companies within a single umbrella. And if you could imagine having that kind of complexity, 11 warehouses selling on all the US omni-channels, we need order orchestration at a level that's easy to deploy, low cost, and be able to do such things as seller fulfill Prime, which is the hardest thing to do, where we ship out of our own warehouses with the Prime badge and adhere to the Amazon SLAs. So how do we do it? We partner with Pipe17. So we've been on Pipe for the last 2 years, and we've grown together. The marketplace is constantly changing, new channels, new ship methods. To be at the forefront of omni-channel e-commerce, we have to take on new technology, new opportunities, and then be at the forefront of it. So long story short, very satisfied Pipe customer, and that's part of the reason I'm very grateful to be on this webinar.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the introduction. Kelly, if we can go back to the beginning for a moment, could you tell us the origin story of Pipe17? What problem was the team trying to solve? And what's the larger vision you have that you're working towards today?
Sure. So the founding team actually came out of Oracle. And I actually worked with the founding team back in my day at Oracle. And it's largely the integration team. It's the team that owned Oracle's iPaaS business. And what they saw was a step above an iPaaS that was connectivity centric. And historically, iPaaSes are great for connecting 2 systems together, but they're very dev centric, which is the challenge. And being dev centric means business users don't really have any control over anything. The other challenge with an iPaaS is anytime and integration changes, and obviously these change all the time, it becomes each user's responsibility to go fix that. So if Shopify changes their API, that becomes the responsibility of every single OMS user connecting to Shopify to make that change. And Shopify has been making tons of changes as they move to GraphQL. We have a full-time engineer just doing that. And there was a realization made that you could actually make connectivity much more of a network. You could put connectivity at the foundation of order management. Historical order management systems are basically iPaaS with some order routing capabilities and order editing capabilities built on top. They must be systems of record. They are apps on top of a database. And anytime anything changes connectivity-wise, you must update each user, each instance of that order management system. But by starting with connectivity at the foundation, that network, it gives Pipe17 a very unique approach. The company was founded 5 years ago, and over time, we've incrementally added more and more and more integrations and added more order management capabilities over the top of that network. So that network gives us our real differentiation in the market. We make changes centrally at the network layer, and we're going after a much bigger play here. We're not just another OMS. We're going much more after connectivity, much more after, think of like Stripe. Stripe sits over the top of banking infrastructure. It's very much a network. It allows you to move money between different institutions, perform different financial transactions, or look at Twilio, same thing, but for the telephony space. We do that for commerce infrastructure. So we make warehouses and 3PLs and selling channels and back office systems of record, programmable objects in our world.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. There's been a perception that Pipe17 is typically the right fit for DTC or mid-market, but I know that you've been working with larger, more complex organizations now. So, for those who may be unfamiliar on this call, could you give us a quick overview of who Pipe is really best suited for, and if that perception, needs to be debunked or is actually true?
We started down market, as most vendors do. You start down market with relatively simple customers, with relatively simple requirements. And for the first few years of the company, we were going after smaller D2C brands. And the number of connections per customer was like 2, maybe 3, right? So they're connecting up a commerce platform with social commerce, with a back office system of record, with a 3PL. And for a long time, we were selling to these 25 to 50 million GMV brands, and that worked really well. And that was a good way for us to bootstrap our network, because any new customer we would sign up, we would add new integrations, not for that customer necessarily, but we would add integrations because the network benefits with more integrations you have, right? It becomes this self-reinforcing thing. There's a flywheel effect by having more integrations in the network. So we organically built the network over time by doing these smaller customers. Now that we have this network built, we have more than 300 nodes in our network, and we connect up selling channels, including commerce platforms, social commerce. We can flow orders from real agentic commerce as well. Take your pick of order capture. And then we connect to back office systems of record. So think of your ERPs, think of data warehouses, analytics, all those types of products in the back office, and then fulfillment. So we connect up to WMSs, 3PLs. It's a very, very fragmented space, as Kevin will attest to. And we connect up to literally hundreds of them. So now that we have this network built out, now that we have some scale, we've organically added a lot of order management capabilities over the years. We're now able to go much more up market. And that's what I was brought on to Pipe17 to do, is really move the company up from the 50 to 100 million GMV brands that we had been targeting up into the billion plus GMV brands. Because there are an awful lot of folks out there who need order management capabilities, but definitively do not want an old school, old approach order management system. Even if it might be incrementally new technology, it's still a legacy approach of having an app sitting on top of a database that has to be the system of record. Much, much, much easier in our world to take API keys, plug them into our network. You have instant connectivity when you do that. And then on top of that, our AI-based order management system can route orders between all of these different channels and provide other order management capabilities.
Got it. I know everybody wants to say the good stuff, but what I want to know is, who is this not for? So when should a retailer not kind of consider pipe and go for something which is bigger, complex, enterprise OMS, if that's what.
We unabashedly do not sell to store-centric old school retailers. The Macy's of the world, the JCPenney's, that was last generation's retail. We do not sell to them. If Kohl's came to us and wanted us to pitch for OMS, we would say politely no. That is not our customer. Those approaches, those retailers are better served by old school OMSs that are very store-centric. Again, we're going for those who have digital at the heart of their business. They were founded digitally first. They are used to working with modern tech, and they don't want a 5-year OMS implementation.
We will come to that one because I see that as a big factor that we should be talking about in the next coming couple of minutes. Kevin, bringing you back in, what led your team at Aterian to explore Pipe17? And then what did that vendor evaluation process look like? And kind of what tipped the scales towards Pipe17 in favor of any other vendors that you might have been exploring at that point?
Yeah, the customer journey for us, may be slightly different than some others, but being a tech-enabled CPG company, years ago, our founders decided to build our own custom OMS. We were in the early stages of doing such things at Sell to Fulfill Prime and being an Amazon aggregator. So connecting to these channels, for example, Amazon with all of the specific rules and different processes, we did it ourselves. We had a tech team in Poland, engineers, I think we spent $3 to $4 million a year on engineers and Azure instances. And in essence, we built a lot of the functionality in-house that Pipe has, order orchestration, order routing, being able to capture data for our ERPs, but we built it specifically for the Amazon channel. So we knew, how Amazon worked at a very detailed level, and then we built a lot of automation in there. The takeaway is that it's very expensive, and you're building a software for yourself in essence. So we reached a point where we could maintain that technology stack and then the resources. So the decision was made. What else is out there? And I'll tell you, when I was part of the team that was trying to figure out, okay, who else has this? We talked to some other companies that were in that Amazon space, and a couple of them were using Pipe17. So we knew the fundamentals were there. Now for us and what we do, we needed some more specialization, customizations, and having, do the discovery with the founders of Pipe, we knew that all the plumbing was there. We just needed to, build some custom rules that were inherent for our business and our warehousing network and the level of complexity that we had. We looked at some of the other solutions that were more iPaaS and that required a lot of customizations. And it went back to, well, we need development teams. We need technical engineers in-house to maintain it and customize it. Because as we all know, omni-channel changes. Every 6 months, you look back at what you were doing and it's different. Maybe you added a new warehouse. Maybe you got out a new channel. It changes. Kelly mentioned the JCPenney's and Macy's of the world. Those are very static. Once you hit the on switch, you're not going to touch it for a long time. That's not the kind of business that most CPG online sellers are in.
That's very interesting. Kelly, how do you enable this agility? So I've heard a lot of Pipe customers talk about there have been changes on the 3PL side. They've added new sales channels, new regions, and it's been fairly quick. So from the back end, what is really enabling that agility and flexibility?
It's one word, it's network. And the advantage of that is we operate a very large network at scale. So if you want to start selling on TikTok, for example, you just have to plug in your API key and your store ID. That's it, right? We then will flow orders back from TikTok, and we then maintain that integration centrally. And that makes all the difference in the world. You don't have to spin up a dev project to do that. It's categorically different than traditional order management systems. Another advantage is we don't have to be the system of record, and that's really foundational. I get why old school OMSs have to be that master, that system of record, But in our approach, many of our customers actually have their ERP as the system of record. And all we do is anytime an inventory update or whatever it happens to be hits our network, we propagate it to all the nodes in the network so that any other system is very capable of being the system of record, which is fine for us. We'll flow it there. We're plumbing in that infrastructure. We don't have to own everything. I think it's a mistake for every enterprise application to demand that they own everything.
That makes sense, and that's a very refreshing approach to what we see typically, right? So, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to quickly move to business outcomes and speed to value, which we've already kind of touched upon in the last couple of minutes. What kind of results, Kelly, have your customers typically seen after implementing Pipe17? And Kevin, if you could talk about in that same thread, the two top wins or improvements that your team experienced after going live.
Sure. So we see a lot of top line increase because right now there are many more selling channels than there ever used to be. Historically, you would sell on your commerce platform, and that would be about it. And now what we see is commerce platform plus TikTok. TikTok is big. They're 80 billion GMV. We won TikTok Partner of the Year last year. We see Amazon and Walmart. We won Amazon MCF Partner of the Year last year. Walmart's more than 100 billion GMV. And then I think in the next few years, we're going to start to see AI actually capture orders. And we are 100% the right architecture for that. And we already do flow orders from AI today. So that's all, all very beneficial for us as a vendor. And I think we're very much future-proof there. And you have to sell where customers' eyeballs are. That's a big differentiator. It's a lot cheaper to sell to through an existing channel. It's very expensive these days to drive traffic to yourbrand.com. My 13-year-old said websites are for old people. And that made me sad to hear that. But that is true. Websites are increasingly dated. You have to be on a laptop. And today's generation of kids, they're on phones, they're on mobile devices, they're on iPads. They're not on big laptops like we sit on all day long. So you have to reach consumers where they are. The other category of advantages is bottom line savings, and Kevin can personally attest to this. It's a lot less care and feeding to run on an ongoing basis because with a traditional OMS, if any one of those partners changes their API, you have to have a dev go in and fix it. And that's a whole project. You have to have devs on call all the time. It's categorically different from a network that you're throwing orders to have to go in and fix these things. And then finally, just time to value, right? It's getting live quickly, and we very much help that.
And before Kevin, I bring you back in. When you say getting live quickly, what does that average time look like, and what's the fastest implementation that you guys have done?
We've seen customers go live in 2 weeks. That's pretty common. But Kevin can talk about how many channels they have live with us. How many channels is it again, Kevin? Like 30?
Yeah.
A lot of channels.
Yeah. International too. So yes.
Yeah. Maybe you could walk through, Kevin, how quickly you're able to get new channels live with us.
TikTok's a perfect example. We were one of the first ones to use the TikTok Pipe17 connector. At the same time, we were trying to get the Shopify, the TikTok connector to work. Unfortunately, that one didn't get off the ground, but we were live with TikTok within 2 weeks. It's that fast. I want to sorry to hijack the question a little bit, but I think it's apropos. Is like the wins for us, right? Supply chain. I run this global supply chain operations. So supply chain's a cost center, right? It's the more money you save, the more profitable that transaction becomes, right? But for us, the supply chain, my supply chain, then became a profit center because we were able to expand into new channels. With that homegrown software that I talked about earlier, our engineers had to go figure out, okay, now we want to sell on Walmart. What do we need to do, right? We want to sell on Target Plus, invite-only marketplace. If you got your own tech stack, you can't really get a opportunity to sell on Target. But we work with Pipe17 and their partners through their API connectors, and now we're on Target Plus. In essence, the inventory that's already in the US for us in our 11 warehouses, We want that UPC, that SKU, to be on every channel possible, right? That increases our sales. By having that kind of footprint and connected to pipe, we're able to do seller fulfill prime 1 to 2 day delivery on Walmart, on Target, on Amazon per their requirements, but all Shopify, eBay, Wayfair, you name it, Mercado Libre. Now every other channel benefits from it. For us to build something like that, you really have to go to a big 4PL that's got footprint, but they're expensive, as we know, because guess what? They got their own homegrown tech stack. It's very interesting, these days, by having partnerships with companies like Pipe and having a good supply chain team in-house, you could build what you have to go to a big provider to get, and it's more cost effective to do it. Now, the other wins are onboarding warehouses. Once again, going back to the operational side, if you got a big network, you're working with a lot of 3PLs. Cost structures change, management change, quality of the performance of 3PLs change. If you're only connected to them directly, it's very difficult to move, because you may be able to redo a contract, but your tech's not going to move automatically overnight. With Pipe, we've been able to launch new warehouses within 2 weeks. I love that 2-week number, because after the contract signed, that's our sprint. Week 1, do the sandbox, do the testing. Week 2, go live. We have been able to go live with different 3PLs in different parts of the country in 2 weeks. That's unheard of. That's unheard of, these days, especially for a company our size, and then, lastly, cost. I talked about cost earlier. We had spent $3-4 million a year on engineering resources and database infrastructure when we did it ourselves. I don't want to throw out a number, but let's say it's like less than 10% of what we spent. Now we spend with Pipe. 90% savings. If you have a smart company that is innovative, looking at technology to optimize supply chain, you got to partner with a company like Pipe, where they have these connectivity. So now it's really up to you to figure out how do you as a company use those connectivity to make your cost center drive down your cost and make your company more profitable.
Fantastic. I mean, you're looking at connectivity, faster speed to value, and lower TCO all in one shot. So this is very interesting. And my last question to you, Kelly, before we open it up for Q&A, is really on pricing. Could you share a bit about what the pricing model looks like? Is it based on order volumes, or how do you kind of go about it?
It's a cost per order. And obviously, the more orders, the lower the price is going to get. But yeah, it's a predictable cost per order, which is fairly standard these days.
Yep. Well,
and then we do not do professional services at all.
Okay.
So that's just not something we do.
And are you looking at building out that implementation ecosystem in terms of SI partnerships at this point, or is it simple enough that most retailers are actually just able to go through the documentation and get it done themselves?
It's hard, because if it's a standard, simple, set up a couple selling channels, a couple 3PLs, we'll do that as part of an onboarding, and that's just a quick couple-week engagement, and that's something that we do in-house. I wouldn't call that professional services. It's more of plugging in API keys. But usually when somebody's implementing us, they're doing a lot of back office transformation, and they're engaging supply chain experts, and they're trying to figure out which 3PLs to use, whether they should have owned warehouses, what the WMS should be. They're figuring out where payments should get done. There's a ton of other work that often happens alongside a Pipe17 implementation. So our part is not that bad at all. But there's usually other work involved, and that's where we're bringing in other third-party SIs to be able to do this work for us, because again, we're just not a professional services firm.
Got it. One last question, and I did not have this, but what are you most excited about as you look at your roadmap, next 1 or 2 years out?
Getting these bigger and bigger enterprise customers signed over. So we're close to our first $1 billion GMV brand right now, which we're really excited about. And we're going to keep moving up market. We think there's a giant space between the Manhattans and Sterlings that rule upper enterprise right now, and the iPaaSes, which rule the below 50 million GMV. So we're seeing hockey stick-like growth internally, which is great. We're signing big customers and getting them live quickly. We're building out that third-party network of folks who can implement our product in the surrounding ecosystem. And again, we're just relatively uncontested. We don't see a lot of competition here, even from legacy OMS vendors or even the newer style OMS vendors that are using a legacy approach. Folks are seeking us out because we start with connectivity at our foundation.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you for sharing the insights, Kevin, Kelly. That brings me to the end of my questions. We'd love to open it up for questions from the audience. You feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly, or if you'd prefer, you want to drop it on the chat and I could read it out for the group. Do have one question, Kelly, from Lakshman. He's saying, great and novel approach to order management. One question, what controls do you enable for managing the experience in these channels? For example, throttling how much inventory you expose through each of these channels.
Yeah, we absolutely support that. Kevin, you have a lot of firsthand experience with determining what inventory goes to what channel. Do you want to walk through your experience?
Sure. That's a really good question. Inventory, right? Inventory is money sitting. It's capital, right? For a CPG company. A big part of managing inventory is inventory accuracy. If the more 3PLs you use or the bigger the company, the more inventory you have, you're going to have variances. And this is what a chief supply chain officer's role is really about. Managing inventory. In terms of challenges and ordering inventory, right? There's that whole planning and procurement, right? In e-commerce, it's just in time. You don't want to bring in 2 years worth of inventory and put it in a U.S. warehouse and hope it sells within 2 years. You want that container to come in 30, 45 days later, you want it to sell through and have that next container replenish it. And you want to do that regionally in different parts of the U.S. So you don't just have one warehouse in the middle of the country. So you could have faster shipping, lower shipping costs, and make your products more profitable. The key in terms of managing inventory is to figure out what inventory do I have, the snapshot. Inventory is dynamic. It's always changing. To have an accurate snapshot of inventory will allow you to do planning, figure out what to order, and then place those orders across your manufacturing all over the world, the procurement, and then transport it and get it in that warehouse for that customer to run the deals, run the sales on your channels like Amazon. One of the big learnings for us is in the past, even when we had our homegrown system, it was very difficult to get accurate inventory, and what is the cost of the miss or inaccurate inventory? Now you're ordering an extra container of goods, another $50,000, $100,000 in capital being set aside to order something you may not need because the inventory was inaccurate. Now, it doesn't mean that the inventory is missing. It's just in all these aggregated systems, it doesn't have the true real-time quantity. For pipe, we had some phenomenal savings once we onboarded with pipe 2 years ago, because having pipe be the order management, order orchestration, all the WMS inventory across 11 warehouses, 4 different 3PLs, 5 different WMS systems rolls up into pipe. We could write custom rules to figure out, okay, in this 3PL's network, their definition of availability is this, right? If it's inbound staging, they may think it's available, but it's or not available, but it's available. We want to count it as available because when we do our inventory roll up, that inventory is there. It's in the U.S. You would imagine, the folks that are on the call that know this, the WMS is how warehouses operate. It's mapping statuses of inventory is like a nightmare. But in pipe, we can write custom rules. When it's in this warehouse, these are the requirements to be available. In this warehouse, it's that. Now, aggregating all that up, running inventory planning every week, we have very good inventory statuses. I can't really share numbers, but we had large variances at the end of the year when we do our physical cycle count. Since we went on pipe, it dropped dramatically. Where our auditors asked us, "What the heck did you do?" And then lastly, I'll talk about the ERP, right? Pipe operates, as Kelly mentioned, as an OMS. That data also needs to go into our ERP, be it, we use Acumatica, other companies use NetSuite, and there's a whole slew of different ERPs. Those connectivity with the ERPs and the custom rules we could write, Pipe has that, and it's very easy to do. You don't need a whole dev team to go figure it out. The JSON structure and how you could go in and put in if-then statements or different rules on priority, it's very easy to do. For us, people in our supply chain team do it, not engineers on the IT side. So that's the other benefit that we get. But managing inventory, that's one of the things that I don't think Pipe proactively sells or makes it a key offering. But I'm a testament of a customer that went on pipe, and then our inventory variance went from this to this overnight because of the ability to capture real data, clean the data, and then present it in a way where it feeds all upstream and downstream processes.
Fantastic. Lakshman, I hope that answers your question. Perfect. We can move on to the next one, and this is from Scarlett Clayton. With the recent acquisition of Where2Go, does Pipe17 have any plans to partner with Stored?
Yeah, so Where2Go is a customer of ours. So we actually have many 3PLs who resell Pipe17 themselves. So to get onboarded onto the 3PL, they buy Pipe17 and then offer it to their dozens or hundreds of customers, sometimes thousands. So a lot of the big 3PLs out there, from FedEx, Radial, Ryder, Barrett, all of them use Pipe17 behind the scenes to get into their respective 3PLs. And Where2Go is one of those examples. So we're actively talking to Stored right now, and we're going to find out.
Fantastic.
If I may, I want to
Please.
give another example because the network that we have includes Where2Go and other Pipe17 enabled 3PLs. So it's real interesting that it's because you sign with a certain 3PL, you don't have to stick with just their warehousing, right? If you have another provider that's performing really well, let's say in the southeast region of the country, and it's not, a 3PL A, you can use 3PL B, but then your network operates, without any hiccups because Pipe17 is sitting on top. That's really good because in cases where you could work with the 3PL for better in and out fees, lower storage costs, maybe they have a UPS account that they resell that's really good and you need that for your parcel savings, right? You could, once again, Pipe17 enables all these optimizations that may not exist if you're single string stuck with one OMS system connected to one 3PL provider.
Kevin, and a side question. Since you're using a lot of these different warehouses, this is Darpan here from Nextuple. Since you're using a lot of these warehouses, you obviously, one critical decision is to determine how much inventory you keep with which 3PL. How do you do your inventory planning allocation today? I'm assuming that's something outside of Pipe17. I would love to get some insights there.
Yeah, we have used different planning tools, Anaplan, Avercast, and we looked at other ones. But in the past, though, the data that fed into those planning models came out of the WMSs or our ERP, and our data was not very accurate. So once again, the planning models spit out the wrong results, and our procurement wasn't optimized. Currently, with Pipe17 in the last 2 years, those planning tools are fed directly from Pipe with the most accurate data, real-time data. All the data is as of Monday, let's say noon, that's the cutoff. It's the real data for all the systems, all the 3PLs. So it's the real snapshot that feeds into the system, and then all the planning runs are done. But going back to your question, with that many warehouses, you have to do regional level planning. It makes it much harder than just ordering for the entire US. You got to figure out, okay, the Southeast, the Northeast, Central region, West, Northwest, Southwest, and then plan on the customer demand profile by channel, figure out what SKU you need. And each of these SKUs, as you know, has a different lead time, right? So all of that is, once you get that complex, you can't really just do it in a spreadsheet. So you got to use a planning tool. A lot of these planning tools have those features. The other thing that's interesting is AI-enabled planning tools. There's a lot of interesting tools out there that aren't just looking at days on hand and when it churns. They're looking at AI-enabled data, such as what's your incremental cost of stocking out, right? I call it the hedge fund math model. There's some very innovative companies that are using that way approach to doing planning. So there's a lot of innovation happening. And then that's the other thing with Pipe is there's so much connectivity. As these companies come up with AI features and tools, and it's already connected with Pipe, it's now you can take advantage of it if you're using that stack. Because Pipe will do the order routing and then has its own AI. But let's say now you want to use an AI connectivity partner of Pipe that looks at last mile and parcel, right? Now in your order workflow, you could engage that and get more optimization out of it. So it's this hub and spoke that Pipe17 talks about. I love that diagram that they have, where it's really hub and spoke, right? All the other applications on the side still feed into Pipe, and it goes back out, and you get the goodness of it by having that hub and spoke architecture.
Makes sense. Kelly, you couldn't have asked for a better spokesperson, than Kevin, articulating all the benefits. So,
We
kudos
agree.
to you. I mean, it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes, and I'm sure the listeners, are going to, love that. Coming from, straight from you, Kevin. I'm sure that's very valuable. Thank you.
Very much agreed.
We have a whole bunch of questions, but if you do have any questions, again, just a reminder, you can unmute yourself and talk through, or of course, please feel free to post it on chat. The next question is, does Pipe17 have capabilities to support estimated delivery date calculations in the pre-purchase journey?
We are working on it. That is horribly, horribly complicated, as I've come to understand. We're actively working on that right now.
And have go ahead.
Oh, I give you an example for our Amazon Seller Fulfill Prime business, which is a big portion of our business. I tell people, I've been in this industry a long time. I'm ex-Amazon. SFP is the hardest thing to do. In essence, you're performing at Amazon network levels, but you're not Amazon. You have your own network. You have tools like partnerships with Pipe17 to do your order orchestration. It's interesting. It's at Amazon when I was there, and they're probably still like that. Is that Amazon had a lot of tech and let's fix it with tech kind of approach. But within Amazon, the culture is the process correct, right? So you apply kind of how stuff that I was doing, Lean Six Sigma. You got to lean out the process, take all the waste out, and then automate it. If you automate a bad process, you're just going to automate a bad process. You'll still have issues. So when we look at things like the delivery date promise, for Seller Fulfill Prime, and it's a big business, $50-60 million a year on some of these brands that we do SFP for, is that let's forward stock. Let's get the inventory into 6 warehouses, 5 warehouses, and then we ship everything ground parcel. We don't even upgrade most of the labels. And because we're forward stock in enough places, we're delivering it in 1 to 2 days. Good enough for Amazon performance. 99% on time ship, which means carrier first scan by midnight of the same day that the order dropped. And then 93.5 on time delivery, which is the 1 to 2 day commitment. It's interesting, by having that kind of forward stocking behavior wise for a national US network, you're able to hit the 1 to 2 day delivery timeline and give that estimated date that Amazon gives us, and we got to hit. So it's interesting in that you're not promising the customer, yeah, I'm going to have it to you in 2 days. We're getting the order from Amazon saying you are going to deliver it in 2 days. You guys go figure out how to do it. And we're able to do it with Pipe17 forward stocking and not having to upgrade a lot of labels. Less than 1% of our labels are upgraded. It's all ground, which is the lowest ship method for a lot of the goods we sell, which are oversized, over 20 pounds.
Great, thank you. Kelly, one of the follow-up questions I had on EDD, since you said it is on your roadmap, when can one expect that to be available tentatively?
That would require that I look through a Slack thread, which I don't have time to do right now, but I know it's being worked on.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll move on to the next question from Jordan. A quick summary, it's basically about why not go for a store-centric retailer, but I'm going to read out the full question anyway. With companies like Target, Walmart, they have their own homegrown applications that are so customized, they would lose their value of the Pipe17 network. Is that correct? Is the first part of the question. But just philosophically speaking, if you had the opportunity to greenfield an enterprise-sized retailer overnight, which she knows makes no sense in reality, would there be anything preventing Pipe from working well across a store-centric retailer?
So Walmart and Target and those handful of top 10 US retailers, they build everything from scratch. They build commerce, they build order management in many cases, or if they do have an order management system, it is a very heavily customized older solution. So I put them in their own class. Vendors just generally don't sell very well to them. And if you do end up selling to one of them, the challenge I have is, let's say you land Target as a customer. Target then becomes your biggest customer by a factor of 10, and they completely screw up your roadmap and company for the rest of the customers. So philosophically, I don't like signing those gigantic, huge customers, even though it'd be great revenue, and I'm sure our board would be quite pleased. It would be detrimental to our company. What we're going for is a much more repeatable 500 million to billion GMV enterprise brand. We have signed some store-centric retailers, and we'll announce a couple of them shortly. But they are store-centric, and that's fine. Where things get really complicated is if you're doing a lot of fulfillment from physical store. And that really becomes the challenge because many of these stores have very complex one-off requirements and setups for fulfillment from store. And that almost becomes custom every single time you do it. So that's kind of where we draw the line. If it's pretty straightforward, we absolutely support it. And we do have customers doing that, but generally not. The other thing is, again, it's a selection bias thing. Those old school retailers are looking for old school solutions, and they tend to hire folks who are experienced in those solutions. But it's funny talking to these digitally native brands, like Allbirds is one of our customers. Like they wouldn't think to go to a traditional order management system. And that's why we actually call ourselves the Un-OMS, because we're confusingly providing order management capabilities, but we're not necessarily a full OMS in the traditional sense. We're connectivity first and foremost at a foundation with AI-based order management over the top, but we're not a traditional old school OMS, capital OMS solution, if that makes sense.
Jordan, I hope that answers your question. We will move on to the next one, which is a little more technical, under the hood kind of a question. Could you talk a little bit about the underlying network architecture? Is this based on an open source iPaaS? Are there canonical models you define for entities?
Yeah, our canonical data model is at the foundation of our product. So we have that all publicly documented. We actually donated our data model to the Mock Alliance, which is using it as the foundation of its open data model. So the 114 members across the Alliance are now using it as a foundation, which guarantees interoperability with our network, which is why we did it. And we have a great data model. It won out in the competition to select the data model. So once the data comes in, we normalize it to that canonical data model, which guarantees the interoperability with the other nodes. Architecturally, we have our own system. So it's not built on an iPaaS. It's actually built on AWS Lambda. So we spin up a function every time, and it's all event-based. So very nice, clean architecture, very modern, very cost-effective for us to run. Again, it's not that old school, app sitting on top of a database. It's much more of an event-centric architecture built on Lambda.
Ashwan, hope that clarifies your question. We will move on to the next one. Can customers use Pipe17 platform to build out integrations to other systems in their ecosystem, assuming there are no pre-existing connectors? And are there any tools or development platforms that Pipe17 provides to make it easy to build out these integrations?
So many times we will build out the integration for the benefit of our network. So if somebody comes to us and wants to hook up to a 3PL, we'll look at it. If it's just a one-off thing, forever a one-off thing, we'll tell them during the sales process that we're not going to do it. And we'll help them. We can point them in the right direction. We'll bring in a partner. And we do support full custom integration. So if you want to integrate with, some completely in-house ERP system that you've built, for example, that's fine. And we have many customers who do that. But if it's something that would benefit other customers of ours, even if it's just 2 customers, we'll absolutely build that for the benefit of the network. We'll put it in the product, and it will not be a professional services type engagement. So yeah. And then, yeah, we fully support custom as well.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question is from Stephen. Sorry, did somebody else have a question?
Oh, sorry. So I can go next.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's Dhanabal here from JCPenney. Kelly, it's from your store-centric retailer example. But anyway, it's well, thanks for like a great insight, Kelly, Kevin, and even Ritika, right? It was great. So I just have like a one question about this. I know we already evolved into something called headless commerce, right? Where we separate front and back end mainly the e-commerce and then order management systems. But we are also going towards this composable commerce. What is takes on like a Pipe 17? Are you more lean towards the headless like a commerce or composable commerce?
Yeah, actually, my boss at Commerce Tools invented headless commerce. So very familiar with headless commerce. I wrote a book on headless commerce. It's kind of my thing, or was my thing, I should say. Headless is just decoupling front end from back end,
Mm-hmm.
and we've now done that, for 10 years, and it's just seen as the default now, which is great. Composable is another evolution of that. And what composable is it's best of breed. It's using the absolute best functionality for each point solution. And again, historically with commerce platforms, for example, and you see the same thing with order management systems, is it was everything in a box. It was a big grab bag. And commerce platforms and order management systems did absolutely everything under the sun. And you'd buy one of each of those systems. Composable says, no, you know what? The search that comes with a commerce platform might not be the best. Therefore, go pick a search that's better situated to your business. Go pick a CMS that's external. And what's great about composable is you can mix and match these components. And when you build a collection of APIs using best of breed functionality, that's composable. When you put the head on top of those APIs, that is then headless. So that there's a nice intersection there between headless and composable. We see the same thing in order management. We're a proud member of the MOC Alliance. And what we do is very much focus on order management and connectivity between the nodes in the network. So the advantage here is you can pick and choose the components in order management that work best for you. And what I mean by that is you can pick, if you want to do TMS, or if you want to do rate shopping, if you want to do delivery promise, if you want to do payments, you can plug in and plug out those components. And an example of that is, we as a vendor, for example, unabashedly do not do analytics. We don't believe analytics should be in the scope of the order management system. We think that you should have enterprise-wide order management, and across the entire enterprise, you should do your analytics and that type of work. So therefore, we're not going to do, a little, dummy analytics product just to tick the box. We're going to do we're going to event data out to the analytics platform of the customer's choice. So we're very much aligned philosophically with composable. We think that systems should be scoped to the entire enterprise, and they should be best of breed across the board.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question from Stephen. If you have regional inventory with multiple warehouses, can Pipe handle a seamless cutover on a per order basis when inventory depletes in one warehouse so that the order jumps to the next closest or best logistical choice?
I'll take that one. That's a great question. That's one of the things that we had to custom build with Pipe. And it's at a high level, we're able to geofence the entire US by warehouse location and states or cities. Pipe has already native rules built in, such as don't split an order, right? These types of things. So we're able to now, when that order drops from Amazon or Walmart or Target, and depending on where the customer zip code is, route it to that warehouse that has it the closest to that customer. Let's say they went to go pick that product and someone screwed up the warehouse. It's not there. They go to the location. There's no boxes, right? Pipe will automatically take that, and then using the round robin rules that our supply chain team built, if-then statements, not engineering teams, just regular supply chain folks like myself. We were able to build a round robin rule. So now it'll go to the next closest warehouse, and then it'll, the rate shopping and parcel, it's done at the WMS level of the warehouse also. So once again, it's streamlining the process. Don't build a heavy cumbersome process. Figure out how Pipe works, figure out what, best way to allocate your inventory and use routing rules. And so we're able to do that. So going back to the question, 100%. If it'll find the closest location to the customer, route it to that warehouse. If it's not there, it'll just go to the round robin rule. And the level of customization that we have is that different channels behave differently for us. So now those routing rules, actually, it's dependent on channel also. So we could say for this channel, I want to use this routing rule. For this other channel, I want to use that routing rule. We could set cutoff times. For this channel, I want 2 p.m. cutoff. This other channel, I want 4 p.m. cutoff. Just imagine the level of complexity if you had a massive code base and you have to have engineering and IT go update that, because supply chain folks will say, hey, for next week, I want this. We're running a deal, so I need to have this set of parameters for these 4 warehouses. We could actually just go into pipe, go into the, the allocation menu, the inventory menu, do some radial dial flips, comment out some, if-then statements, and then we're live. I mean, it's that fast. For us, the way we operate, we have morning stand-ups with the supply chain team every morning. That's where we talk about, performance yesterday, things we got to work on. We could actually make the decision, hey, I want to turn off these 4 warehouses because of weather issues in the Northeast or whatever, right? And then an hour later, our offshore team, had gone into pipe, made those parameter changes, and it's live. It's that fast. It's one of those things that, I always look at it and say, it's like, this is insane.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
What else?
2 more. I think we're almost at the top of the hour. This question, Kelly, Kevin, is from Manoj. Has Pipe17 done any benchmarking or order flow throughput or system performance, especially with B2B orders that remain active for many weeks, if not months? It could be a critical factor.
Yes, we've done. So is this like performance, like throughput performance?
I think so, but Manoj,
yes,
if you want
that is what I mean. I don't have a nice voice, so
That's all good. We actually just did internal benchmarking. A very, very, very big influencer is launching a brand, and we just won that yesterday, which we're very excited about. So I don't remember the exact number, but it was in thousands of orders per minute that we support. It will not be a problem. We also support, again, we flow all the orders for many of the major 3PLs in the country. So the Radials, the Riders, the Barretts, the FedExes, all of those 3PLs, and we fully support those in their volumes. And a lot of that is just the architecture that we support, because it's all Lambda based and it's all event based, and that stuff scales infinitely. Not a problem at all. So we've actually been architecture has been the easiest part of this product so far.
Hope that answers your question, Manoj. But if not, I would be kind of requesting everybody after the call, after potentially the next and last question, is that if you do want to explore any more deeper technical conversations, demos, please do feel free to reach out to Kelly, Kevin, or even us. So just post on the Order Management Gurus community, and one of us can, follow through.
okay.
The last question for today is from Lakshman. Do you have a marketplace model for apps that may want to connect into your network, either now or in the roadmap?
So what would be a marketplace? I'm not understanding the question. Like, if folks want to build their own connectors into us, is that the question?
I can expand, Kelly. I was just thinking. So say for example, there's a specialized capability for order sourcing or for complex inventory requirements. Since you have kind of the backbone and an iPaaS concept, could you also plug in, say, special logic components or apps where you may not have the right answers? Just going back to your composable question, that you kind of form the backbone and the orchestration layer, but you can plug in channels, you can plug in fulfillment systems, but you can also plug in, somebody has a great AI model for, forecasting inventory. I don't know, whatever, right? Can you plug in using your canonical model? That was my question. Almost like an app store type way.
Yeah, we fully support that. So I just pasted a URL here for a support page we have on doing exactly that. All right.
Fantastic.
Well, look, I'm
Thank you.
available. Ping me on LinkedIn if you have any follow-up questions. Happy to support. But thank you all for joining today.
Thank you again, Kevin, Kelly, and thank you for joining everybody else. Have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.